Welcome back to the Pick Show on the podcast. Doug Lesmerises, Austin Ward, Bill Landis, Ohio State, Minnesota on Saturday. Landis, what is interesting about this game?
That's a great question, Doug.
Too late. No answer. Austin, can you do better than
Last year I had this idea, Doug, where I was like, you know what? Ohio State and Michigan need to just forfeit the week before the game because it doesn't affect anything. That is how strongly I feel about this game being against Minnesota being played and Michigan's trip to Maryland, which is the same thing Ohio State had to deal with last week. I said last year, I'm sure you did too. I know Bill did. Like, what are we doing here with the Big Ten rules with these conferences where these two teams are 2 games clear of everybody else? It is clearly the Big Ten championship game. Why don't we just treat it as such and get rid of nuisances like Ohio State having to go through the motions against Minnesota? Like, this game is completely irrelevant to the Big Ten title picture and in all reality, the college football playoff picture. It doesn't change anything. So yeah, I'm super excited for it.
You're like pro SEC model on this. I think Alabama's playing Chattanooga this week. I think Florida State, is playing a directional Alabama school. I think perhaps North Alabama. Landis, is that right?
That's right.
Is that where we should be in the Big Ten model? I've always mocked that. It's like, hey, like game 11 every year for Alabama is the Citadel. It's like, what are we doing? But Austin feels like he's in favor of that.
No. I'm not asking for chicken salad Saturday and like buys. I just think if it comes to the point competitively where there's no point whatsoever in the game being played to determine your championship, and this doesn't help Minnesota win the West, right? I mean, I guess nope. There's no mathematical possibility of that. Like, what are we doing? It doesn't help Maryland. It's not going to achieve anything for anybody. And if you want to just give them the win in the standings, so be it. But it's hurting the 2 best teams and making it, and it doesn't change anything for next week or likely who's going to win the Big Ten. I mean, it's silly.
Well, they are going to play it. Okay. I mean, unless Austin, if you're going to the game on Saturday for a 4 p.m. kickoff in the shoe, and you get there and they're like, we called out, you're going to understand the power of Austin Ward. Yeah. Landis, if they do in fact play this game, I think a lot of people thought Ohio State got some work done, some necessary work done against Michigan State last week. Mm-hmm. It feels like Minnesota is, 15%, 20% more competitive than that Michigan State team. What is it that Ohio State should be trying to accomplish in this one? And what are you factoring in as you try to evaluate what your score is for this?
I think Ohio State needs to continue building up this passing attack. Took a nice step, I thought, against Michigan State with Kyle McCord playing probably. I suppose it was his best game of the year. You have to take the opponent into account when you make those kind of determinations, I guess. So maybe it wasn't. But he played really well and he looked confident. And I think maintaining that confidence is important for Kyle McCord in this game. Building back up the rapport with Emeka Egbuka, I think, is important in this game. Just generally, I think coming out of it feeling good about your ability to maximize your passing attack against Michigan the following Saturday, and that very much influenced how I thought about this game. I think you're going to see Ohio State put it in the air quite a lot.
They, as we talked a little bit last week, they've had a sort of a recent history of doing well in Game 10 of the season. There have been some weird Game 11s, right? I mean, I don't think we have to remind anybody of 2015 against Michigan State. I don't think we have to remind anybody of 2018 against Maryland that could have been a loss. You think about, I mean, it blows your mind a little bit, Austin, to think that in 2019, they put Penn State the week before the Michigan game for Ohio State, and Justin Fields got hurt at the end of the game, and that mattered. I don't think any of that is on the table here, but I am on alert a little bit for maybe a less convincing performance from Ohio State than we got last week. It feels like they're headed the right direction. I don't know that they're going to keep charging into the Michigan game because I think their eyes are a little bit forward right now. I don't know how you can avoid it. Ryan Day is trying his best to avoid that, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to evaluate the score and the game script of this game, do you think they have Michigan on their brain?
I think you can't help but have it on the brain. But I went to look because you referenced a couple of the high profile examples that we know happened in the last, 5, 6, 7 years for Ohio State the week before and what happened. I'm like, is this an actual trend? Is this something that Ohio State consistently has to deal with? And the answer was no, unless they're in College Park, Maryland. And you did mention one that was further back. So here are the last 5, Doug. Last year at Maryland, 43-30. Ohio State, they win comfortably, but it was weird. They gave up a ton of points. And then you had the year before, absolutely destroying Mel Tucker's contract extension game, 56-7. And then because of Jim Harbaugh's COVID immunity, there wasn't one in 2020. In 2019, you mentioned the Penn State game. Ohio State wins that at home, 28-17. Then 18 was the one at Maryland, 52-51. And then the year before, 2017, there, I guess we can count having, Ryan Day involved in that. Illinois 52-14. So they're at home, especially. They're putting together some pretty complete performances. They're not looking ahead to the game. It's human nature. Like I would be, but I do think that Ohio State really drew the right kind of schedule that it would want here, where it has an opportunity to play and get sharp and rest guys conceivably while doing that at home and having you don't have to leave the training staff and be around the Woody and get all that extra attention medically that you might need to be prepared before and after the game without traveling. I think that that's a big deal as we do skip ahead a week, but Ohio State's done a good job at home of staying focused on the task at hand in the last few examples of this, and to follow up on what Bill's point was for how Ohio State can maximize this. Minnesota's a pretty decent and run first team on offense, so there have been times where even when Ohio State's not giving up a ton of points or a ton of rushing yardage, we've asked, all right, are they giving up too many yards on first or second down? We know that Minnesota is going to try and run 3 and even 4 times to try and get a first down. So I think that would be a part where Ohio State can defensively stay sharp and fine tune those details, knowing that that's a blueprint that Michigan is going to try and use and probably much more in position to do that much more successfully than the Gophers.
4 p.m. Big Ten Network. Ohio State has won 12 straight against Minnesota, 28 of 29 and 40 of the last 42. Minnesota 5-5 this year, 3-4 in the Big Ten. 2 of their Big Ten wins, like kind of typical West games. They won the opener against Nebraska 13-10 on a last-second field goal, and then they beat Iowa 12-10 in that game where Cooper DeJean had a punt return that would have won it for Iowa that was called back. What is the most interesting thing about Minnesota that any Ohio State fan should be thinking about, curious about when you go through them statistically, Landis? It doesn't feel like they're particularly good at any one thing. They're sort of ranked between 8th and 11th in the Big Ten in a lot of statistical categories. What's PJ Fleck going to try to do here?
I mean, he's going to try to sit on the ball. There have been times in the past where that's kind of always been their MO, but there have been times in the past where they've been built to actually do it kind of effectively, including in 2021 when Ohio State played that team up in Minneapolis to open the season. And I think maybe was the 2019 season where they had a good year up there too. They had some good receivers too. They've not been able to kind of get back to where they were receiver wise back like when they had like Rashad Bateman and were pretty dangerous throwing the ball. They've been more or less a run centric team since then with like decent offensive lines, but I think everything is kind of tuned down a little bit for this Minnesota team. I actually think PJ Fleck's done a pretty good job there. And we've talked about that on Kings of the North a few times, but this is one of his worst teams, I think, just on both sides of the ball. There's not a whole lot there. Like there's some interesting guys in the secondary, like Tyler Nubin is one of the better safeties in the country. Like, are there times when he and Marv get matched up? Possibly, and that's probably worth watching because that's 2, no doubt about it, NFL players and 1 first-round draft pick, another guy who'll be drafted fairly high. But aside from that, I don't know that there's a whole lot there. Coming into the year, I thought Minnesota's quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis could be interesting, but he's not really lived up, I think, to the optimism that this program had for him as he took over the reins this year. So they're an average Big Ten team, I would say.
I think maybe like the only quarterback in the West who's not a transfer, Ethan Kaliakmanis. So, all right, 27.5 is the line here. The total has been around 49.5. It was, like on Wednesday, it was like 49 or 49.5. Now it's more like 49.5 or 50. We'll call it 50 for our purposes here. Austin, we will start with you. What is your pick for Minnesota at Ohio State?
Yeah, I took the under both ways because I think that Ohio State is going to follow a pretty similar approach to what they used against Michigan State, which is they're going to, I think, pour it on pretty quickly and early. There may be fewer possessions in this game, even when the starters are in the first half, because of Minnesota's ability to, grind out possessions, even if they don't get a first down, it's still going to take them 2.5 minutes to get off the field. They're going to run, every ounce of the clock, and they also go for a lot of fourth downs. I think they're second in the country in fourth down conversions. Maybe I'm off a spot or two on that, but they go for it a lot and they get in short.
They're tied for first. Yeah.
Tied for first. All right. I don't give them the tiebreaker, so I have them second. That's my stat. But I think Ohio State will still win comfortably, just the same way they did against the Spartans last week. So I have the score at 41-6 for the Buckeyes. I think it's going to look just about the same. By the middle of the third quarter, I expect Ohio State's backups to be in the game. I don't think this is one where they like pull away and make the score look out of hand in the second half just because they have better athletes. I think they have better athletes and they are executing at a high level and they want to get it done. And I think that they will. This game will be wrapped by halftime, and I think that will keep it under.
41-6, a cover and an under. Landis, what do you got?
49-10, Ohio State. So I'm a cover and an over. I'm nervous about the over. It's 49-10 if anybody looking on YouTube. Because of all the reasons that Austin said. But I do think Ohio State might score like 6 touchdowns in the first half of this game and then pack it in and maybe tack on another one there when the backups are in. Minnesota is 3-7 against the spread this year. Ohio State's actually 6-3-1. They've kind of earlier in the year they were not great against the spread, but they've been pretty good lately.
They're stealing people's signs to cover the spread.
Maybe they're stealing signs, and Minnesota apparently is not. So I feel good about the spread, even though it is a larger number, and there is the opportunity for Ohio State to either be looking ahead or just not really putting the pedal down because they just kind of want to get it the next week. But I feel okay there. If Minnesota is able to execute its game plan and hold the ball, that becomes problematic, I think, for a over projection and a cover projection. The thing with Minnesota is like they are aggressive on fourth down and they're very good at it. I think they've converted 85% of their fourth downs. They're terrible on third down. Like if they can't get it to 3rd and 2, then I don't know if they can do anything. It's weird to be tied for first and fourth down conversions and number 100 in the country in the third down conversions, but that's what Minnesota is. So it's kind of an odd thing. And I think as long as Ohio State can keep Minnesota out of fourth and manageable, as weird as that sounds, they'll do a pretty good job of keeping that offense from holding the ball.
So like Austin, you have Ohio State covering the 27.5, but you are going over the number. Yeah. Austin is under the number. So I'm going to talk about a guy that we have not talked about yet. And I was searching for prop bets on this guy and I could not find any. I guess they don't care about field goals in the prop bet business, but Dragan Kesic, who Landis was our all-North kicker on our midseason Kings of the North team. He leads the Big Ten in field goals. He is 21 of 25 on the year. He kicks 2.5 field goals a game, kicked the game winner in the opener against Nebraska. Good big leg. I think he's going to be like wailing away from 54. And so I think Minnesota's going to score a little bit in this game. And I have it 40-16 Ohio State, which means I think they're not going to cover the 27.5. And I do have it over because I think Minnesota will contribute to the point total enough to get it there. So, and this is a little bit, again, we like to talk game script, Austin, of like, I just think maybe like the machine won't keep rolling downhill, or I think it might be like, it's a little, it was fine. Nothing for people to be worried about, but maybe it gets a little loose here or there. And I do think Minnesota is like moderately more competent than Michigan State. So I think it has a chance to be just like a little bit closer. So we're like kind of split along lines here. So Landis and I are both going over. Austin, you're under. Austin and Bill both have Ohio State covering. I do not have Ohio State covering. So that means we're going against each other, Austin, which makes it fun.
I love that little intrigue. And then you can tell by how much money some of us have made this year and how much others haven't, which is probably the right way to go.
We're going to get to the money graphic. Austin's like, put up the money graphic now.
Doug, how is Minnesota getting the 16? Is that 3 field goals or 4 field goals and 2 safeties? Or
no, it's like 3 field goals and a touchdown against Ohio State's third string with 2 minutes left. What are you talking
about? Second half backdoor touchdown.
Okay. PJ Fleck, they're going to keep rowing the boat, man. Ryan Day is going to be like, everybody come out of the water. Come out of the water. We have to get ready for Michigan, start toweling off, and PJ Flex guys are going to be like, can we please get out of the lake? And PJ's going to be like, row that boat. 54 seconds left. Punch it in to get to 16. Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Austin is the best at this. Is that what you wanted to say, Austin? Austin is the best at this. He's 11-9 on his Ohio State picks this year. I'm 9-11. I've actually been a little hotter the last couple of weeks. Bill is 8-12. Against the spread, Austin is 6-4. Bill and I are 4-6. On the totals, Austin and I are 5-5, and Bill is 4-6. So, Austin, who's the best at this?
I think I am.
Yeah. And you also have positive money, and nobody else has positive money. Your positive money is so positive, we're almost back to even as a show. That Landis and I have been dragging us down. Yeah. And so, we'll get to that in a second, but a little forward momentum for the pick show on the podcast. All right, that's it for the Ohio State picks. When we come back, Ohio State props next after this. All right, Austin, you are far and away our leader here. You are plus 135.85 for the year. You are coming off a great 4-1 week last week where you cashed some nice plus numbers. I am minus $55.68. Bill is minus $94.73, but he was just a scooch away from hitting a $330 thing last week. We'll get to that in a second. But Austin, you are hot here. Yeah. So again, plus 135, we make 5 bets every week. It's $10 on every bet, $10 on the Ohio State spread, $10 on the Ohio State total, $10 on each on 2 Ohio State props, and then 1 Northern bet. Austin, you're kind of on it, man.
I'm having a good time. And I've mentioned I like to put my money where my mouth is. So my accounts right now look great because I was bet last week, $10 wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. And then they made me sweat it. But I should knock on some wood. I've been enjoying it. The show's great. Made some good picks. I hope everybody else is making money. If Doug and Bill, if you guys want to just copy my picks every week, that would be fine too. I want to share the wealth. That's what we're here to do.
What's the etiquette on flipping the bird to somebody on this on the show?
I think if you say "Go Birds" while you're doing it, it's okay.
Okay.
If he won't say it on Tuesday in a press conference, he's not going to say it to me now.
That's true.
All right, Austin, what do you have for the good people for the Ohio State prop bets?
All right, back to the Maserati and I felt like I could have been more aggressive with this, but I didn't want to because I do think that Ohio State's going to pull most of the guys out at halftime, and they tried to get Marv that bonus touchdown last week in the third quarter, but I am going to project all of this in the first half of work for Marvin. So I have him over 6.5 catches and a first half touchdown. I think he'll probably have 2 touchdowns if I had to guess, and I wouldn't begrudge anybody from adding that into any of their parlays or picks. But this one seemed like a fairly straightforward option at plus 194. So Marv has had a touchdown in every single game since Notre Dame, multiple touchdowns 4 times. He's had 6 catches. Less than 6 catches only once, which is against Rutgers. We thought, oh my goodness, what Marv can't get involved against the Scarlet Knights. What's going on? He still had 4 catches in that one and 2 touchdowns. So I don't know. He hasn't not scored since September, which is wild. And even on this one, it doesn't have to be a receiving touchdown. Now we've seen the end around and letting him get involved as a rushing threat. So it just feels so obvious to me that Marv is going to score. And then you see some of the bubble screens and shorter stuff to get Ohio State's offense going to get Marv rolling. 7 catches seems like just he can roll out of bed and do that. So I'll start with Marv, and then I'm going to build on that with a separate passing game aerial show for Ohio State. And this stat I thought was not great for Minnesota. They have given up 3 touchdowns or more to opposing quarterbacks 3 times already this year. Those teams were Northwestern, Illinois, and Purdue. Kyle McCord in Ohio State, a little bit more competent than that. Kyle McCord has back-to-back games with 3 touchdowns, so I have him at over 2.5 touchdowns. 1 to Cade Stover on senior day and 1 to Emeka Ibuka. So that's a single game parlay with anytime touchdowns for those 2 guys there. I left Marv out. I could have got that even more juicy with the odds, but this felt like a reasonable play to make at plus 590 on FanDuel.
We have 4 separate bets between the 3 of us that are hooked to Kyle McCord going over 2.5 touchdown passes. So I want to have a broader discussion about that because like we kind of have all the bases covered with how we have those hooked up. Landis, what do you have for your Ohio State prop bets?
I have hate in my heart for Harlan Barnett.
Can you bet that? Can you bet hate in your heart? I would like, can you show me where that sportsbook app is? I would like to bet that I will have hate in my heart at some point on Saturday. And then they have like an algorithm. They put a chest thing on you.
Boom, boom.
Up there it is.
I got boned last week. My first.
Well, we have to. We'll save you getting boned for later. That's a good tease. When we come back, Bill explains how he got boned.
I got boned.
So, like, because you did
not safe for work. Holy cow!
On your northern bet, it's on your northern bet.
No, I got boned on one part.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I got boned twice.
Explain your props. Okay, your first one. What went wrong with that? Because we were in the press box together.
Yes,
and it was sad.
You guys seem pretty annoyed by what was happening in the press box sitting next to me.
What? Yeah, no, sad is probably not the right. Annoyed is it's a better adjective.
Yeah.
Landis is fake money.
So I had Ohio State first drive touchdown combined with Michigan State first drive punt. Got the touchdown on the reverse to Marv. It was great. Everyone's excited. Michigan State gets to the Ohio State 39-yard line. It's 4th and 5 from the 39. And we were like, oh, they're going to go for it. And I was like, no, they're not going to go for it. And like the first person to trot onto the field was the punter. So I started pumping my fist in the press box. Turns out the punter is the holder on the field goal team. And Michigan State tried a 56-yard field goal that had no shot. And I lost my bet because Harlan Barnett was chasing points with a 56-yard field goal on the opening drive of the game.
It did feel like he was trolling you. It was weird.
Yeah, it felt personal.
It felt very personal. Yeah. Sorry, bro.
It's all right. So that and combined with losing my northern bet did make me want to really chase some hefty odds in this one. But I tempered it, so I'm not doing that. I am on a Kyle McCord parlay for my first prop for the Ohio State game. It's over 2.5 passing touchdowns combined with 275.5 passing yards. And as Austin said, this Minnesota passing defense, like on the whole, is pretty good. But when it's played teams that can actually throw the ball, it's not looked very good. It gave up 400 passing yards to UNC, 400 to Northwestern. On the road this year, it's giving up almost 300 passing yards per game. And Kyle McCord at home this year is averaging 303 passing yards per game with 12 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he's played much better at home throwing the football than he has on the road. And Minnesota has been much worse on the road with its pass defense. So this, and I think the likelihood of this happening is reflected in the odds only being plus 142. I think there were some other games this year where you probably could have gotten 200 or above for a play like this. So I thought about tacking on a touchdown with somebody here to increase that juice a little bit, but I'll just stick with Kyle cashing this at plus 142 on FanDuel. And then my second prop bet is another single game parlay, mostly just about a fast start, I think, for Ohio State. So it's Ohio State minus 14.5 in the first half, with the first half total over 25.5. So I don't know. I'm thinking Ohio State's up like 28-0 or 28-3 at halftime, and this hits. And it could be more than that. We've seen games, not necessarily from this team, although last week was pretty close to it, where they just score the 6 times they have the ball in the first half and it's 35-0 at halftime. Like, I think that's on the table here. So there are a few different ways you can get to this, including Dragan Kesic maybe banging through a field goal or two to help you get to the 25.5. But I like Ohio State with a comfortable halftime lead and a fast start again, just like last week.
And there's no way PJ Fleck could get you this week, right? I mean, I guess PJ Fleck could like try a 63-yard field goal with Dragan Kesic to have Ohio State only be up by 13 at the end of the first half instead of 14.5. And then
the hook could get me, I guess. The hook could get me. Yeah.
Okay. So both of my bets involve Kyle McCord going over 2.5 touchdown passes. And the first one I hooked with Carnell Tate, who he has 1 touchdown this year. And I just feel like if we've been talking about Carnell Tate a lot, I think people see his role and that he's not just like a blowout guy. Like, they work him in a little bit here and there. And if you think he has a chance to help you in any way against Michigan, I feel like you'd want to get him a little more run in this game. So I do think maybe this is kind of like, in a blowout situation, but I think it might be purposeful, right? Like, hey, let's like get him geared up, right? We want to build some confidence. So McCord over 2.5 touchdowns, Carnell Tate anytime TD gets at plus 493. I think Carnell, the score was like plus 350 as an anytime touchdown scorer. And then my second one is Austin. Didn't you have Marv on a multiple touchdown thing last week? Right?
Yes, I did. Yep.
So we're counting Marv touchdowns in the press boxes. We were like, why'd you only bet 2? Why didn't you bet 3? Why didn't you bet 4? Why didn't you bet 5? And I was like, all right, well, I mean, I am trying to learn from you, Austin. I'm trying to learn from you. I'm trying to learn from a winner.
That's respect.
3 touchdowns for Marv. So I have my second pick is Marvin Harrison Jr., 3 touchdowns, and McCord over 2.5, because it's like, well, I don't know how could the one hit and not the other? I might as well get a little bit extra juice on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, do we think Lincoln Keenholz is going to be throwing 3 touchdowns to Marv? They're all going to be reverses? No. So that's plus 607. So like we're just all. So my question is like, Landis, why are we all so confident that Kyle McCord's going to throw 3 touchdown passes against Minnesota? Is it because we think Kyle McCord's like figured it out, or because just how Ohio State's going to want to play in this game? Even if he's not great, he's still going to throw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, kind of a combination of that. Like he's playing well, like, and you want to build on top of that. You want to maintain his confidence, as I said earlier. And the third piece of that is Minnesota's pass defense just isn't very good. Now, I guess they could do the thing that Rutgers tried to do, which is just keep 2 guys deep and try to keep Ohio State from hitting explosive passing plays. But I don't know that Minnesota is equipped to do that based on how they've performed against even, above average passing offenses this year. They've given up 548 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception in the last 2 games against Purdue and Illinois. And as Austin said, Ohio State is much better than both of those teams. So I just think it all kind of syncs up nicely for Kyle McCord to have another nice passing day.
And I'm factoring in a little bit the backup quarterback situation, because Ryan Day did admit that they left Kyle McCord in against Michigan State a little bit longer because Devin Brown was hurt and they weren't as much in a hurry to get Lincoln Keenholz in the game. But like, I don't know, should that matter? Do we how are you factoring in? Like, are we going to get an extra drive or 2 out of Kyle McCord because their backup quarterback situation's a little iffy?
I think last week was probably a pretty good balance of that. And I do think that it's likely that Lincoln Keenholz would play again. I was going to say with your Carnell Tate bet, like, they were letting Lincoln throw. We've talked in the years past about Ohio State and Ryan Day's managing of the backup quarterback. Like, should Kyle McCord get to throw more? Should CJ Stroud get to attempt to pass? Like, is this important to their development to let them do it in games? And like, his approach was always not really, because practice reps mean so much more to them and they get a ton of it. But they threw Lincoln out there and he's been working with the first team offense or running the full offense for like 3 or 4 weeks. And he got to do 2 throws out there to Jelani Thurman. He took a deep shot on a 3rd down. Maybe he could have checked it down and stayed on the field, but like, Carnell Tate would still be out, I would imagine, for most of those reps. So I think that may work in your favor. I think that they will. I'm expecting this to be such a fast start for Ohio State's passing attack that I didn't even want to mess with like yard accumulation for Kyle McCord, because I think like Travion's going to get carries in the first half. They want him rolling a little bit in momentum, and then they'll finish off drives in the red zone through the air. I think that's my guess how this is going to work. So I think he'll be out early. And if not, like, we're going to have different conversations about the way this team is executing heading into next week. But that played into my thinking. I think Kyle's going to, I don't want to be a hypocrite about this. It's not just him playing better. The pass protection was better last week. He made tight throws where Marvin Harrison obviously made great plays, but Cade Stover in the red zone on the touchdown, like having Emeka Egbuka back, offensive creativity. It's a collective thing where I think Ohio State's offense is getting better, and Kyle McCord is just more than capable of leading it down the field.
All right. So also, anybody would be allowed to just bet Kyle McCord over 2.5 touchdowns. Not at great odds, but I don't know. You still get money.
Yeah.
So
money's good. You take profit anywhere you can get it.
Yeah. So that we might have. I think we all would probably agree that feels like a pretty decent way to risk your money this week. All right. We come back. Northern bets. listen to Austin. Next on the pick show. Before we get to Austin's pick, Landis, just explain what happened to you last week, because you flew so close to the sun and it was beautiful. It was.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who watched the show a week ago and wrote down your picks had a magical Saturday rooting along with you. And then you all crashed to earth and died.
Somebody did send me a tweet, and I apologize for not remembering the name of who it was. Like right before the Ohio State game, I think I was down on the field pregame reading it, and it said like, "I told you on the Big Ten West pick, we're looking pretty good so far." And I was like, "Yeah, I think you might have just jinxed it."
Yeah.
So it was a 5-leg parlay. 4 of them hit. The one that didn't hit was Rutgers beating Iowa on the road, which in hindsight, I think probably makes sense, right? Like we know that there was going to be a low scoring game for sure. Ultimately, not terribly surprised that Rutgers won that game. I regret a little bit actually including it. The reason I included it is because I wanted Iowa to take a loss to bring them one game closer to the pack while everybody else moved up and would have been tied. I think it's second place, one game behind Iowa. I got the 4 other results I needed, but yeah, Rutgers couldn't pull it off for me.
There's all this chaos in the West.
Yeah,
like,
the overtime win for Illinois against Indiana was part of it.
You had Northwestern as a money line win as a 10-point dog at Wisconsin. Like that was good.
Yeah,
you had a lot of good stuff in there, and you got nothing out of it.
Nothing.
Except I tried to pat on the back on this frickin' show.
I tried to tell you both before we even ended the show. I said, you're going to bet against Iowa, the Kings of Chaos. Like, don't do it. I told you.
I know.
I thought they were going to invite the chaos, like a quarterback who lets teams rush him so that he can make plays. I thought Iowa was going to lose to invite the rest of the Big Ten West.
I want to see
their face and then juke them at the last second.
I want to see Kirk like just draw on some Joker smile and like carry around a little knife and like go across the sideline and ask, Brett Bielema, you want to know how I got these scars?
What if he cut off Brett Bielema's Hawkeye tattoo off his leg and was like, you don't deserve this anymore. All right. By the way, we made these picks before the news that Cooper DeJean, one of the best defensive players in the Big Ten and maybe in the country this year, is out for the season for Iowa. And yet, Austin, did you reconsider? Did you hesitate? Did you ever doubt Kirk and your Hawkeyes?
How can I? I mean, just a masterful job of coaching by this program. This isn't the first season-ending injury they've had. It's like, oh, well, there's no way I was going to bounce back from that. Oh, they lost 1 tight end. Oh, they lost 2 tight ends. Oh, they lost 3 tight ends. And I mean, Cooper is the best of that entire bunch and like obviously helps on special teams, but I don't think that the defense is going to, I have more confidence in Iowa's defense than just about anything I could possibly bet on. So I'm riding with the Hawkeyes again. Somehow they'll carve out enough points to win. They'll cover 3. The under in this game will be 27.5. I dropped it down, I think 3 points from what it's at. And I took the Illinois team total at under 8.5 to get to plus 395 on DraftKings.
Isaiah Williams has been electric the last 2 weeks, the Illinois receiver who's second in the Big Ten in receiving yards. He's your only fear, I think, on a bet like this, that could he crack something open against that Iowa secondary. But I mean, what? I mean, you've only hit on Iowa like 5 weeks in a row. So what am I going to do? Tell you to be cautious about Iowa? Be ridiculous.
No. You gotta keep pressing the pedal to the floor, riding and dying with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Woohoo!
You also got help too by Brett Bielema deciding to play the worst quarterback. This week. Yeah,
they're playing Luke Altmaier instead of John Paddock, who's been like electric and led them the past couple of weeks. All right, Landis, what you got?
He doesn't have that Iowa tattoo for nothing. You got to help out.
That's true.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Hawks first. Yeah. Landis, you got a 9-way parlay this week or what?
It's 4-way parlay this week. I'm calling it the Happy Valley Hangover with Penn State and Michigan. So here it is. It's Maryland plus 19 combined with the under against Michigan of 50.5. And then it's Rutgers plus 20.5 combined with the under of 41 against Penn State. I feel much better about that one than I do the Michigan-Maryland one, but I vow to be in the black by the time the Michigan game came around. So I got plus 820 on this one by lumping in the Maryland spread cover and the under with the Rutgers spread cover and the under. Like Michigan could win 35-0 and it'll go under, but I still wouldn't hit the spread. Like I'm kind of worried about that. I do think Penn State Rutgers is going to be a pretty ugly game. I think both these teams are beat up. And Penn State obviously is going through its transition at offensive coordinator that I am not anticipating yielding much in the way of better results, especially against a pretty solid defense with Rutgers. And it's going to be in a dead stadium with no juice because no one in Happy Valley cares about what's happening with Penn State football now that they have 2 losses. So I feel good about that one. I considered playing just that one by itself, but again, I'm poor, so I need to get that plus 820 here.
How did you factor into this bet at all that Michigan is America's team?
I didn't.
Oh,
yes. Maybe I should have.
America might have something to say about that. Okay.
The outrage across America for picking against Jim Harbaugh.
I'm betting on the Oregon State-Washington game in primetime on Saturday night. Best game of the weekend. And the Washington especially, right? Great passing team, but I'm calling this the Pac-12 grinded out parlay because it's about running the ball. And I am going first off under on this game, under the 63.5. Oregon State, I think, can have a couple long possessions. Washington's gotten it back rolling the past couple weeks, including against like a terrible USC defense, but they also had some games early this year where there have been some hiccups. So I just think this game is more like 31-27. I don't think we're talking in this a 63.5. I think is a lot to ask. And then I just have anytime touchdowns for the 2 main running backs in the game, Damian Martinez out of Oregon State, who's just electric, and Dylan Johnson at Washington, who's actually been pretty good the last 2 weeks. And so those 3 parlayed an under and anytime TDs for the 2 main backs plus 425, which I thought is like pretty good value on. I don't think there's anything outrageous in this bet. So it'll be fun. Like that's, if you're a college football fan, I would recommend keeping your eyes on Washington versus Oregon State on Saturday night. Austin, what do you got, Landis?
Well, I was just going to say, like, I was listening, I can't remember where I was listening, but like Washington has like kind of flipped the way it's going about its offense. Like I think they were running the ball like less than 40% of the time for the first 8 games of the season. In the last 2 weeks, they're like, I think close to 60% of the time.
Really? Okay.
So I think that helps you out there.
Yeah. It felt like, people were maybe starting to figure them out a little bit. Austin, you guys, you going to the game? What are you doing? Going to the game Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be at the game. I'm going to hang out. We'll be there early. We'll do some pregame keys. Maybe we'll rope Bill into joining us again. Try and go live, but we'll have, whatever availability report news we have. Get ready for senior day as Ohio State gets ready for Minnesota. And then changing up the post game a little bit. We'll still have the notebook. We'll still have Snappy Jays. But Doug, you guys have an update over how we're going to manage the post game live this week.
Yeah, we're going to move to Michigan week pretty quickly. So, Landis, that means you expect to be hanging out with the fellas on Snap Judgments after the game, right?
Yeah, and I think we'll try to do it live and kind of give you the live post-game analysis that we've been giving you all season, just with myself and Austin and Berm in a little bit of a shorter format. And then later Saturday night, probably 10. We're thinking 10.
I think we'll call it 10. That's a good time to launch. Yeah.
Doug and I will be hanging out here live on the podcast channel with our tech subscribers, just like talking about Michigan week vibes. We're not going to get into like a lot of statistical analysis. We'll do that later in the week. We'll go pretty hardcore on some of the matchup stuffs and do a really thorough game preview. This will be more of like, how you feeling? And we'll hang out, I guess, as long as people want to and kick off Michigan week that way.
You crushing beers or what, Landis?
I will be crushing beers. I have a whole lot of Spotted Cow from the trip to Wisconsin that I didn't go on. I still got the perk of getting the Spotted Cow, so I'll be putting a few of those down. Yeah.
Smart. Is that like a thing? Is that Spotted Cow Wisconsin beer a thing?
Oh yeah, you can only get it there. Yeah,
because my daughter went to the Northwestern Wisconsin game, and there was a senior in the car that she was in, and they had to stop at Quick Trip to get Spotted Cow, and she was like, "What is happening? Why do we have to do this?" And
when is she? Is she coming home for Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Are you asking my 19-year-old daughter to bring you beer on a Southwest flight? Is that what we're doing? I'll ask her. I mean, she's very accommodating. Yeah.
I didn't say that on a recorded podcast. No.
No. I didn't understand. So I'll explain that to here. It's literally within only the borders of the state of Wisconsin.
Yes.
That's their thing. And then Berman, I went there on Friday. It was the real perk of getting up early and flying out there, because New Glarus itself, where Spotted Cow is made, is only open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, because it's not like a go there and drink all day and like drink as much as you can. Like you take a tour and like you can load up the car a little bit with the stuff, but they only sell it in the state of Wisconsin. That's their whole move.
Huh. It's a good business plan. What if you could only watch this show in the state of Ohio? Do you think that'd be would people drive to Ohio to be within the state boundaries?
Pulled over on the state border on I-70, looking at their cell phones, watching us.
All right, so that's it to get us ready. Again, we'd invite you to we're calling it the late night launch for the game, 10 p.m. Saturday night. Like, bring your vibes about that game. We do vibe shows on this channel. We do like in-depth shows, and what we like about it is we bring you a little bit of everything. So we're just like hanging out and getting you ready for that week, and then we'll have a bunch of stuff next week. Kings of the North, Kings of Columbus, the podcast daily, Buckeye Q, the live show from Roosters, pretty much bringing you like Thanksgiving's happening, but so is this channel and all these shows. So we appreciate you guys being with us. Stick with us through what should be a great Ohio State Michigan game. But first, Minnesota at Ohio State, 4 p.m. on Saturday. For Austin Ward and Bill Landis, and for the great Jeremy Birmingham making this all work, I'm Doug Lesmerises. Thanks for joining us on the Pick Show on the podcast.